Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 252 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever, it seems, he's been with me various weeks during this pandemic. It is of course the former heavyweight world title challenger. He almost did it, Mr. Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how are you?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
Always good when speaking to you, Eddie. You know this. So yeah, same as we have been doing it, obviously going to dive straight into the review part. I'm going to fly through that as quick as possible. Then I'm going to move on to the preview part. There's a couple bits of news to mention. Then, of course, we shall get into the Eddie Chambers Lockdown Knockdown, I think edition 5 or 6, and then we'll bring in our sole guest on this week's show, which will be the former unified world champion, Mr. Daniel Roman, who's back in a big fight late September. Anyway, diving into the review part, we're going to start here with a card that took place last Friday, August 7th at the Matchroom Fight Camp in Brentwood, Essex, United Kingdom. Obviously, Eddie Hearn's back garden once again. Brilliant fight between Chris Billam-Smith, who's now 11-1, and Nathan Fawley, who was previously 14-0. He lost his O, of course, Fawley. He was TKO'd in 2 rounds there for the Commonwealth Cruiserweight title. Fawley was down late in the first round and then twice in the second round. Brilliant little shootout fight, if you like, actually. Very fun fight to watch. Chris Billam-Smith, a guy who, you know, has got that one loss to Richard Riakporhe. Very controversial, very close one. And I think there was a knockdown that shouldn't have been called that, you know, played a part in a 10-8 round, you know, during that fight, and that's why the scores ended up the way they did. So very controversial, very good fighter, Chris Billam-Smith. On that card as well, we got to see Anthony Fowler completely, batter his opponent, really. Adam Harper, who's now 9-2. Anthony Fowler 13-1. Fowler had a point deducted for a low blow in the second round, and the TKO came for Fowler in round 7. But it was topped, though, this card by 2 women getting it on. Terry Harper 10-0. A split draw over 10 2-minute rounds against Natasha Jonas, who's now 9-1, of course, with a draw. That one was for the IBO and WBC World Female Super Featherweight titles. Jonas was cut above the right eye in the second round. Brilliant fight. Absolutely brilliant fight. We don't always see these fights, you know, in women's boxing end up being so brilliant. One that jumps to mind, obviously, in recent times, you know, they get a lot of flack, and, you know, there was a lot of shade being thrown on that matchup the other day where we got to see Sinisa Estrada annihilate that lady in about 7 seconds, the undefeated lady. But here, completely, you know, the other end of the spectrum, if you like, a brilliant fight. Like I say, a split draw over 10 2-minute rounds, action packed from the start. Natasha Jonas, I thought, would not do as well as she did. I really expected Terry Harper to win quite easily, when the fight first got made. But then on fight week, after hearing her trainer, Natasha Jonas's trainer, Joe Gallagher, at the press conference, you know, he went on a bit of a rant. He turned me into a believer. He really turned me into a believer. So I actually put some money on Jonas to win by stoppage, even, because it was 100-1 in every round. So I put, you know, a small amount on each round, 1 through to 10. But of course it didn't happen. It ended up being a draw. So no money earned there for me. But anyway, moving out now to the Plaza de Toros de Puerto Banús in Marbella, Andalusia, Spain, of course, over here. You love that. You love that, Eddie. You know, you wish you could do that as good as me.
I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it.
For those that don't know, Eddie really is working on it. He's you bilingual now, Eddie?
I wouldn't say bilingual, but I'm like lingual in 1/4. If that makes sense.
All right. Well, yeah. Put it this way: Fast Eddie is a fast learner. He's past the hola and gracias stage, way past that. Yeah. But on this bill, way past. There we go. On this bill, Kerman Leharaga now 31-2, a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against our very own Tyrone Nurse. As I said on last week's show, a few years ago, I'd have probably favoured Tyrone Nurse, but he's racked up a few losses now in quick succession. So he's now 37-7 with 2 draws. Kerman Leharaga, like I say, beat him on points, didn't stop him. 31-2 now, Leharaga. Moving out now to the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles, California. A card that kind of went under the radar, if anything. I didn't know much about it until it really took place. The top of the bill, Jamal James picked up a win. He's now 27-1, a unanimous decision win against Thomas Delorme. That one was for the interim WBA World Welterweight title. So yeah, that's a good win there for Jamal James. Also on the bill, friend of the show, Michael Fox, 22-1 going in against relatively unknown, at least from my angle, Lucas Santamaria. He is now 11-1 with a draw. He went into the bout with a record of 10-1 with a draw. And he had Michael Fox down in the first round. He kind of got, punched down, if you like, in the corner. He sort of sat on the ropes a little bit and then just got punched down. Couldn't really do much about it. But it was very much a phone booth kind of fight. They were right in each other's faces for the entire fight. And Michael Fox, like I say, friend of the show, honestly, a guy that in boxing I really, really like. He's a good friend of mine, Michael Fox, but sad to see him lose. A lot of people saying it was quite controversial. I've only seen the highlights, haven't seen the full fight, but a loss for him, a big upset there. Michael Fox now 22-2. Both losses, I guess, then have been controversial. He's quite an inspirational character. Had 100 amateur fights. He lost 60 and only won 40. Then, obviously, he turned pro, racked up a bunch of wins, started taking boxing seriously, and last year was able to beat and take the O away from the 2016 Olympic gold medalist. So a brilliant amateur. And he wasn't a good amateur, Michael Fox, but in the pro game, certainly something different. All the best to him. Very, very sad to see him take a loss there. Hopefully we see a rematch. And again, just yesterday at the Production Park Studios in South Kirkby, Yorkshire, United Kingdom, talking of massive upsets, it was a humongous upset. John O'Carroll, 18-1 with a draw, coming off the best win of his career against Scott Quigg, where he stopped him. And, his one loss came to Tevin Farmer in a world title fight. He gave Tevin Farmer many, many problems in that fight. They've remained good friends. He's gone out there, to New Jersey and done a lot of sparring with Tevin Farmer, and they're tick for tack in the gym, if you like, tick for tack. And he gets in there in a bit of a keep busy fight against Maxie Hughes, who's a good fighter but a few levels below John O'Carroll, and Maxie Hughes carves out a unanimous decision over 10 rounds. So John O'Carroll, wow, not quite sure where he goes from here, actually. Funny, well, not funny, but a strange situation. Like I say, coming off a career best win, been at world title level, showed a brilliant attempt in that fight against Tevin Farmer, and he loses to a guy who really, loses domestically. Maxie Hughes is kind of British level at best, I guess you'd say. Anyway, that's it for the review part. Let's see if there's any news. Yes, there is. A couple things to mention here. Let's start with Jose Ramirez. He's defending his WBC and WBO junior welterweight world titles against Victor Postel, former world champion. Victor Postel obviously has those 2 losses to Josh Taylor and Terence Crawford. Both losses were close losses. He's a brilliant fighter, Victor Postel. This fight was set to have took place about 3 times now. It keeps getting postponed, and it's finally on August 29th. That one's going to be live on ESPN+. I'm thoroughly looking forward to that one. Carl Frampton, he was supposed to be taking on a guy called Varam Vardanyan. I kind of bashed that a little bit, really, and said that, it wasn't a great fight, really, for Carl Frampton. He very much had an inflated record, 21-1 with a draw. Anyway, due to, I think it's visa issues or something like that, that fight has now fallen through. So in steps a late replacement for Carl Frampton in the shape of Darren Trainer, who is 16-3. Those 3 losses come to Julie Giner, who is a Spanish fighter. I remember him. I think he might have boxed Martin J. Ward, if I'm not mistaken. He also got banged out in 3 rounds by James Tennyson, and he lost in 5 rounds to Ryan Walsh. So he's familiar with these shores, and rightly so, because he is Scottish. But another on paper mismatch, really, for Carl Frampton. That's that piece of news done. Moving up to the other piece, we get to see Jack Cullen take on Zach Chelli. That one's on the White Povetkin undercard. It's pretty much replaced the Sergei Kuzmin and Martin Bakole heavyweight clash, which of course fell through. So in place of that, Jack Cullen and Zach Chelli. That's a great fight there. I'm really looking forward to that one, of course, at super middleweight. And MTK Global have signed two-weight world champion. I'm not sure if he is a two-weight world champion. He might have picked up an interim world title or something like that at the weight below, but obviously the reigning IBF super featherweight world champion Joseph Jojo Diaz, the guy that dethroned Tevin Farmer, he is now with MTK Global, of course joining the likes of Tyson Fury and Carl Frampton, as we just mentioned, and of course Billy Joe Saunders, amongst others. And the final piece of news, August 22nd, again on ESPN Plus, we get to see the return of former middleweight world champion. Was he middleweight world champion or was he super middleweight world champion? Can't quite remember off the top of my head. I think it was middleweight. Rob Brandt, he's in there against Vitaly Kopilenko, so that should be interesting. Moving on now to the preview part of the show, though. I'm going to fly through this. This one takes place tomorrow, Friday the 14th of August, at the Matchroom Fight Camp, as they're calling it, the Matchroom Square Garden, Eddie's back garden. On the undercard, Shannon Courtney, 5-0. She's in an 8 2-minute round contest against 5-1 Rachel Ball. A lot of people actually tipping Rachel Ball for the upset. I'm not quite sure if you can make too much money on that, but a lot of people expecting Rachel Ball to pull off the upset there. Also on the bill, very, very good prospect, undefeated 8-0 John Doherty. He's in an 8-rounder against Anthony Fox, who's 8-12 with 4 draws. Kieran Conway, 14-1 with a draw, takes on Navid Mansouri, 20-3 with 2 draws. That one's for the vacant WBA Intercontinental Super Welterweight title. Zelfa Barrett, 23-1, his first fight, I believe, with Matchroom. He takes on very, very good amateur and undefeated professional Eric Donovan, 12-0. That one's for the vacant IBF Intercontinental Super Featherweight title. Could be a real good fight, that, by the way. Eric Donovan, bang up for that, of course. Big name for him in his 13th outing. And, the bill's topped by the undefeated 12-0 Felix Cash, defending his Commonwealth middleweight title against Jason Wellborn, former British champion, and a guy that, of course, went out to the States and, made... gave what's the guy's name now? Jarrett Hurd. He gave him a real tough fight, actually, until he got stopped, of course, and Jarrett Hurd just decided to wake up and put him out of there. But that's over 12 rounds there. I like Jason Wellborn, but it's a tough matchup there. On Saturday at the BT Sports Studio in Stratford, London, we get to see Dennis McCann, 6-0. He's back, no opponent just yet. We also get to see Archie Sharp, friend of the show, 18-0, defending his WBO European Super Featherweight title against Jeff Afori, who's 10-2 with a draw. Carl Frampton, 27-2, takes on Darren Trainer over 10 rounds. Darren Trainer, 16-3, like we said. Michael Conlon, 13-0, takes on Sofian Takouch, who is 35-4 with a draw. Obviously, Takouch, challenged Josh Warrington for the world title. I think it was at the back end of last year. He got banged out real quick, so I'm not expecting to see too much from him against Michael Conlan. And Troy Williamson, 14-0 with a draw, takes on Harry Scarf, who's 8-1. That one's for the IBF European title. Moving out now stateside, 2 cards to mention before we bring you in, Eddie. This one's at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, USA. It's going to be on Showtime. Quite a good card, actually. I like this card here. I take that back. There's 2 fights I like on the card. Let's start with the main event. He was on our show last week. David Benavidez, 22-0, WBC World Super Middleweight Champion, defends his title against Roma Alexis Angulo, who's 26-1. Angulo, obviously a real big puncher, known for taking the undefeated record away from Anthony Sims Jr. 12 rounds, of course, there. All the best to David Benavidez. I really, really like him. Always have done. And I respect not just him, but the Benavidez family. His dad's brilliant. His dad is his trainer. He owns the gym that they train in. He's almost like a PR, if you like. I think he also runs like a website where you can buy merchandise, official Benavidez merchandise. So the dad is... He's lots of things in one. He's lots of things in one. Jose Benavidez Sr. So, he does pretty much everything there. So I got a lot of time for him. Good guy. On the undercard, though, interesting fight here, Eddie. I know you wouldn't have known that it's taking place, but I'm going to bring it to your attention now. Otto Wallin, 20-1, of course. The one loss to...
I did.
Oh, you've seen it. All right. Let me let the listeners know. 20-1, the one loss, of course, to Tyson Fury. He takes on Travis Kaufman out of Reading, Pennsylvania. Friend of the show, Travis Kaufman. I hope he gets the job done because he's a good guy. 32-3 over 10 rounds. Interesting, weird kind of fight that I sort of like, to be honest, Eddie. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, man, I haven't seen Travis obviously in a while, but he's been in more recent than I have, but he hasn't been in a while. And it's kind of crazy that he's coming back in just fighting this guy. You know what I mean? Which is a bit of a surprise because Otto Wallin's not just an average dude just walking the street. He's a pretty decent contender. So, it says a lot about Travis coming back and fighting him, but it's a very, very interesting fight. If Travis can get in there and, show class and box pretty decent, you know what I mean? We'll probably have to box a little more than decent. Then it'll be obviously more than interesting, and he'll have a good shot at. He may have a good shot at winning, but it's not going to be an easy task. You know what I mean? It's going to be a pretty tough fight. So, with that being said, it's going to be exciting. I'm hoping for it to be exciting.
Yeah, all the best to Travis Kaufman, and you're right in what you're saying, Eddie. You can't overlook Mr. Wallin. Tyson Fury will tell you that better than anyone. Moving out now to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the final card to mention. Very good amateur by the name of Mark Castro is making his debut over 4 rounds against Raul Corona. Stay away from him. Also on the card, Nikita Abibi, 8-0. He's taken on Jarvis Williams, who's 8-2 with a draw. Raymond Ford, 5-0 in a 6-rounder against Eric Manriquez, who's 7-10 with a draw. Shakram Giasov, 9-0 in a 10-rounder against Weston Campos, who's 31-7 with 6 draws. If I'm not mistaken, I think Campos is a guy that boxed Josh Kelly, I want to say. I'm not checking that, but I think off the top of my head, over 10 rounds there could be quite interesting. He's quite a tough guy, Campos. If it's the right guy I'm thinking of, Josh Kelly kept trying to draw him in. Like Josh Kelly's the type of guy who'll take a step back, let you walk in, and he'll throw a shot over the top, stuff like that. And he didn't fall for any of his traps. He was happy to take a step back himself, and they let a few, like about 6 feet between them. Like, he's happy for that. He's not in a rush. Quite a frustrating type of style he's got, really. So it'd be interesting to see how Giasov deals with him. Also on the card, Israel Madrimov, 5-0, takes on Eric Walker, who's 20-2 over 12 rounds. And the main event, Cecilia Brækhus, 36-0. She defends her WBA IBF, IBO, and WBO female welterweight world titles against Jessica McCaskill, 8-2. I think Jessica McCaskill going up in weight for this fight. Over 10 2-minute rounds. Cecilia Braekhus, at the minute, Eddie, holds the record number of defences with Joe Louis from 72 years ago. 25 successful consecutive defences. A win here for Cecilia Braekhus takes her into kind of her own world, if you like. 26 consecutive defences. I think she's been a champion since 2009. Quite unbelievable. Obviously, she's no longer with Jonathan Banks now. She's training with Abel Sanchez. She's been up in Big Bear for this whole entire pandemic. She's been up there training. She's only just come down from the mountains to Tulsa, pretty much on fight week. So she's ready and fired up for this one. But history making. I know that the women's side of the sport doesn't really get as much attention as it should do, but on this show, we give it a fair crack. Like I say, I really bigged up Harper Jonas last week. A big women's fight this week. And, of course, next week we get to see Katie Taylor take on Delphine Persoon in a rematch that was a real close fight on the Joshua Ruiz 1 undercard. But big fight here for Cecilia Braekhus, Eddie.
Big fight. Anytime you have an opportunity to make history like this. You know what I mean? It's a big deal. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. With these types of things, people sometimes tend to overlook, that they're facing somebody, you know what I mean, in the fight, and think of only been, just making history and focus so much on that and not paying attention enough to the actual task you have at hand. And I think that would be a mistake, especially with history needing to be made here for her. You know what I mean? It's really time to buckle down and focus, but the fact that she's been in camp all this time and focusing completely on boxing, well, I mean, maybe not, hopefully not all the time, but, would, I guess, be in favor. I guess you would be in favor of that. And if you're a supporter of Braekhus, would be really, really happy that she's been able to keep in a safe environment. On top of that, boxing. So she'll be 150,000% ready for this fight because she's not been anywhere else,
Yeah, all the best to her. She obviously, saying that she's in the shape of her life for this fight. She is, I think, 38 years of age. I think she's 39 next month. So at some point she's probably going to have to hang it up or think about hanging it up soon. But I believe if she wins this one and Katie Taylor wins next week, I think they're going to do Cecilia Braekhus against Katie Taylor next. That's what I've been told. So interesting factor. Obviously a lot at stake. All the best to Cecilia Braekhus. I was supposed to actually interview her this week, but for a number of reasons it didn't happen. So I was looking forward to that, which is a bit of a shame it didn't happen. Never spoke to her before, but all the best to her. Obviously wasn't her fault, but we move on. Anyway, that's it though for all the talking from me. It's now time for all the talking from Eddie. Eddie, last time we had you on, obviously was last week. We spoke about the Povetkin fight. There was a lot to talk about with that, obviously. It pretty much took up the whole show. Obviously after that loss, you come back in a few smaller fights, building back up. Where are we starting? You take the lead.
Okay, well, right after the Povetkin fight, I didn't get it scheduled right away. In fact, I mean, it seemed like I wasn't really busy being, it seemed like actually I took some time off, which wasn't really the case because my next fight was in June. But I had gotten used to being in that tournament and being kind of busy, having 5 or so, I think, fights. I don't know if it was that many fights, but it just seemed like I had so many more fights in the year of 07. But I guess it kind of mixed in. I guess it's getting up, for, one fight after another and each fight meaning something. You know what I'm saying? Where this next fight I had really wasn't as big, but it was still an important part of the career at the time. And, having my first loss was a big issue. It was a milestone. I don't want to say a milestone in a good way, but it was realizing that, things, if you're not prepared properly and if you don't do certain things the right way, that you can actually, end up in a situation where you have a loss. So trying to pick up the pieces after that, you go back home, you You sit down with everyone and you try to discuss what is the best plan of action, which way you want to go. And obviously the first thing is to get some kind of a confidence builder, you know what I mean, back under your belt. I mean, at the time I wasn't thinking that way. All I'm thinking about is I just want to get back in there and win. And even if it's the better the opponent, the better the win, obviously. But you can't look at it that way. You gotta, that's why and you have management or you have people looking out for you, because they know generally they'll understand, especially if they understand the sport of boxing, they'll understand, or sports in general, they'll understand that you need something. You need a little, like I said, a confidence booster. I mean, saying you lose your first fight as a professional, it's not going to be an easy thing to swallow. So, they started to look, and, of course, what I did was, especially after not being able to train properly for the last fight, first thing we do, obviously, is go back home and train. And that got to be, the thing from now. I mean, well, I've always done it, but now it really, really became important. You know what I mean? We would take maybe a couple of days off. And in this case, I took like a week or so, away from the gym. Actually, I took a couple of weeks away from the gym now that I think about it, and just pretty much, played ball and, and worked out sparingly with my strength and conditioning guys and stuff like that. And we actually happened to be friends as well as my brother Steve. So we were just basically hanging out, going out a little bit and just enjoying, a little bit of the money that we had got from the fight. But it's still, like I said, it left a sour taste in my mouth, and I wasn't really over it. You know what I mean? You don't get over something like that right away. It takes time. So what happened was we finally get back into the gym. We start working out. We start training. Then I'm told that I think this was, like a few weeks after, I think I started coming back. Actually, no, I'm going to say maybe a month or so after I got back into the gym. And the fight with Povetkin was the 26th of January. Yeah, the 26th of January, 2008. So I was back in the gym, obviously, a few weeks after. We didn't learn of the fight till maybe a month or so later, that we were going to fight in June against a guy by the name of Raphael Butler. I'm going to say it was right before my birthday that I found out that I was going to be fighting him in Grand Cayman, which is it's an island, and off of the coast of, if I'm not mistaken, Florida. You know what I mean? So I was thinking at the time, well, I got to fly again, which Joey knows how much I hate flying. But at this point, it was just like, hey, it is what it is. But we go down, and then I'm realizing it's this little small island, off of it. And it's, it's a nice place. It's what, I think they said 60 or 70 miles total, the whole island. So we're getting down there, and I found out.
Let me just interrupt. You said there that you hate you hate flying. I just want to let the listeners know about a particular time where you you hate flying so much. You were was it when you were gonna fly to was it the UK when you drunk the night nurse or day nurse or whatever it was?
That was actually that was when I was about to fight the guy, Dominic Jenkins.
Okay.
And the funniest thing, and then I already told the story, so they remember. But I took all of that NyQuil. I got to Vegas. We got to Vegas because we had to go straight to Vegas and then from Vegas to Reno. Didn't sleep 1 ounce on the flight.
You drunk
not even a second.
I think you said you drunk, like the whole thing.
Half a bottle.
Yeah, or half. Almost. You overdosed on it, basically.
Basically. But I tell you what's funny is that no sleep on the way there. So the whole reason for me taking it didn't do a thing until I got there. I slept for 12 hours straight off the plane. Went and I think we worked out a tad, ran around a little something, got to the hotel, laid down, didn't wake up again. Yeah, woke up after 12 hours, went back to sleep again for another 8 hours. So it did its job, but just not when I wanted it to. but anyway, so obviously I stayed away from the NyQuil from then on. But we're on our way. We get down to Grand Cayman, beautiful island. It's a different type of thing. And I've been to I think before that I went to St. Lucia before. I think I mentioned that. I'm not sure. I don't know if I did. I can't remember for sure. But anyway. But I still, you don't think of things like seeing chickens just running across the street like a cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you have cat running, like stray animals. It was chickens and other kind of. It was so weird seeing things like that. And then
that's how I felt when I came to near your house. Like when I come to your house,
right.
There's turkeys running around.
Turkey and everything. But honestly, I'm from Pittsburgh. Never seen those things. Like I seen a deer one time when I was in Pittsburgh. I was like, yo. And the funny thing is about Pittsburgh is it's a real country area. So there's anywhere outside of the inner city, it's like a lot of rural, like grass and trees and all that kind of stuff. So when you look around, you expect to see animals. But I'm being from the inner city of the city of Pittsburgh and not the outskirts of, you know, like I'm in the city part of Pittsburgh. So I'm not used to seeing that, even the deer. But when I got up to Jersey, like, I started seeing not chickens, but turkeys and stuff like that, wild turkeys. I didn't even know that existed in the areas that I'm living in. You know what I mean? So it was a bit of a stretch. But when I'm down there, I once again see people walking barefoot on the street, and it's like, what the hell is going on? And it's like you just know you're not used to seeing that. Then
I know when you see people walking barefoot on the street, you must have thought, man, I'm gonna find a girl up here.
Honestly, maybe, but no, because guess what? She ain't got nothing behind her. The only thing she got is poor, and that means she is completely away from the American attitude. So she is completely different. As long as she don't get around none of them, it's like the Eddie Murphy thing on Eddie Murphy Raw. As long as she stay away from them American girls, we good. She'll always be what I want. But no, anyway, we gonna get off of that. But anyway, like I'm still kind of going like, what the hell, there's a chicken run across the street, but whatever. Then they offer for us, because when we first got there, you know, they're hearing, oh, you know, I'm there, and you know, I just had fought Povetkin, so there's some small percentage of celebrity there that I haven't obviously got to the Klitschko level yet. But there's people that, oh, I heard of you, and you know, because you know, if you're a boxing fan and you know boxing and you've heard about anything in the States and what the heavyweight division was doing, if you paid attention at all to that, you would know about me. So some of these people do, like I said, there were some boxing fans there and boxers themselves.
Were you in the PlayStation game by this point?
Was I?
I don't know. I'm asking.
No, I was not.
Okay.
No, because that was after the St. Peter fighters when I got that. That was when that happened. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, but we get there and there's people that know of us, obviously, partially while the fight's there, because there's obviously some boxing fans and boxing, you know, public there, and plus there's people that's flying in for it too. But anyway, what happened? Oh, they had a gym there. Now, it's one of the smallest and hottest gyms I've ever seen. And me and my brother was saying, I don't know how they train in this gym. And to be honest, the way I'm thinking of it now is no bigger than a bathroom and a closet together. Like, I swear to God, it's the small, and I'm not talking about a rich person's bathroom. It could be like the whole floor of a building. But no, this is a bathroom, like a 10 by 10, almost like a cell, it seemed like, with a couple other rooms in it. You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, if they train in this, they're gonna be tough, because there's I don't even know if there was a bathroom there was a bathroom. I think there was a bathroom. I think. But it was so small, and it was like 5,000 degrees in there. It felt like you were sitting in a sauna on top of a sauna on top of a steam room. It was that crazy. And I'm sitting there because it's already hot, because like I said, it's down there, you know, outside of Miami. So it's already hot. And I think this was in the summertime. It was in June. So I'm like, damn, they train here? And I'm sitting there like, me and my brother looking at each other like, man, I don't know how we would do this. But I guess if you grow up in anything, you can deal with it. But man, we seen that. Then a couple other things happened, and I remember I don't know why I'm about to bring this up. I know Steve want me to bring this up, but we went somewhere for breakfast, and I think we were getting ready for the press conference later, because we were gonna have the press conference where I was gonna, you know, see the guy I'm fighting, and we were gonna do a little, you know, the talking and all of that stuff, maybe the face off. And my brother's walking in front of me, and I think we were coming from breakfast, maybe going to a gift shop or something. And I look at the back of his head, and I noticed something. And I don't know if I brought this up before. We cut our hair a lot because at that time we didn't have a barber that we could trust. So we would just like where we really, really got to working on our own, barbering techniques and stuff. And we got pretty good at it to the point where we were able to do it. But I noticed that he didn't have a mirror in the, like a small mirror to reflect so he could see how to cut his back. And he had his hairline so crooked. It was like one side was down his neck and the other side was up almost above his ear. And I was like, yo, Steve, what the hell happened to the back of your head? I'm sorry, but it was so funny. I had to bring that up. But so I ended up going and fixing it for him. But it was horrendous, that the job he did. I just had to say that. I hope he does hear this. But anyway, it was bad. But anyway, so we go and we fix that. Then we end up I think we went to the press conference, or I don't remember if this was a press conference or a weigh-in. I think it was the press. Yeah, we did the presser. And I remember I meet Andre Ward. I think this was the first time. You know what? This might not have been the first time. I might have met him a couple of times because we were both under the same umbrella, basically. They call it stable, fighters, because we both were Dan Goosen at the time. And I think I met him before, and he always used to say, "Oh man, I'm a big fan of Eddie Chambers. I really like his style. He's just so comfortable in the ring." He said, "Man, I wish I could be that comfortable." And he said he's one of my favorite guys to watch for that reason, the skill level, and they always took it as a real, real compliment. Seeing a guy who hasn't lost a fight, and I don't know if he can even remember how to lose, but to have somebody really, really respect your ability and what you've done in your career up to that point even, and to have him say something like that was pretty surreal, pretty nice. Obviously he's a young guy at the time. He hasn't even, I think he was 23 at the time, 24. And this was one of his, I think he was fighting, if I'm not mistaken, it's Jerson Ravello. I don't know if you heard of him, Joey, but I think he was fighting him and he was the main event. And it was like a comeback fight because I think he had hurt his knee or something like that at one point. This was his first comeback fight, and I think I was on the undercard of his, or he was on. I can't really remember the whole card, but I'm pretty sure that it was his card. And even at that age, him being so young, I just remember how well spoken he was, how confident he spoke through. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking like, damn, was that him being in front of the cameras a lot as an amateur, or just in general being around, high levels of guys in boxing and I don't know, was it education? What did he have that made him that confident? And at that point, I had already started to feel my own, feel myself a little bit and being able to speak a little bit better and being comfortable with cameras and things like that in my face. But it was still like seeing him, and it just made me say, man, I got to really get myself together and be able to talk to people, relay the information. And that's really where I started to think about, the commentary and all that stuff too. Was really seeing him and how he's such a young kid and he's able to do it. But obviously I seen him again, and, we had talked, and he was a really, really, really cool guy. And I was just happy to be out there and be on the card in a situation like that. But anyway, on to the next few days. Pretty comfortable, pretty nice, nice island. It was really hot. I was a little bit, worried, a little bit worried about the fight, but not too much because I just came off of a big fight with Pavek, and I'm thinking, well, this is supposed to be like a stay busy thing. But then I started looking and seeing this guy had a 31-4 record. And I'm thinking, he lost 4. Most of those other fights were probably against limited opposition. So I'm like, I should be able to have him. But then you look at how many knockouts he had. Then I had heard some crazy stuff about maybe at one point him being in camp with, I think it was Vitaly Klitschko, and I heard that he might have dropped him in camp or something. I'm like, wait a minute. Here it comes again. Now here comes the nerves. Now I got to worry. This guy might be a big puncher. He might be this. He might be that. So, I started to get a little more of the nerves and things started to get into my head. But you got to start now to act with class. And not that I've ever not acted with class, but I didn't want to seem too out of my element. And I wanted to seem confident and comfortable. So then we go into the press conference. I mean, not the press conference, the weigh-in. And I think he had an issue for whatever reason. I was hearing about this, is that he had an issue with keeping his weight right and being in shape. going into fights. And he's about 6'3", 6'4", and his normal weight, a good weight for him would be around 249, 250 pounds. He gets on the scale, 249 or 250 pounds right on it. So he's in shape. He's obviously been training for this opportunity to knock me off and get a good name on his resume to, obviously move forward in his career. So he's coming in shape. And one thing that I always realize, and most times that I'm fighting guys, for whatever reason, they always come in the best shape possible for me. They never come half-stepping. Everybody always seems to come ready to fight me and ready to take me and give me my L. You know what I'm saying? So for whatever reason, he was no exception. He came ready to fight. But there's one funny thing that happened, and we doing the face-off. And I can never be serious with these face-offs ever. You know what I mean? Because it's like, to me, it's just, I guess it's for the fans. It's for the, like people look, they looking at each other. And then, every once in a while you see the guys get riled up and they start talking crap back and forth to each other. But I never really got into that because at the end of the day, we're going to get in there and fight. And there's really nothing else that can be done. We can get in and push each other and all that, but it ain't going to really do anything. We're still fighting, you know what I mean, tomorrow. So let's just wait till then. So most of the time I like to lighten the mood. So the first thing I did is we're in and we're staring down. Now, he's a little bit taller than me. Well, a lot taller than me. But so he's looking at me, looking down at me a little bit. I'm looking up at him and I make this like real sorry face. And I say, man, I'm so scared. And he busts out laughing and walks away. He's like, I can't even do the damn, I can't even do the goddamn face off with this guy because I ain't taking anything serious because I'm not going to try to be like, this is the day before the fight. I'm enjoying the fact that I ain't got to bust my ass training. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to enjoy, even though I'm starting to feel the nerves a little bit, I'm still trying to enjoy while we're out here. We're in Grand Cayman. So I just want everybody to be happy and just enjoy the fight. And I'm not trying to be all uptight about the whole situation. I'm just trying to go through it. You know what I mean? So he sees that and busts out laughing, but we end up getting it all. He ends up, he seemed like a good guy, cool kid at the time. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we got to fight the next day. So I gotta do what I gotta do. Anyway, so we go back to the hotel. I'm thinking I felt decent for this fight, but not really that good. You know what I mean? I remember like in the dressing room, and this was an outside fight, and I really, really don't 100% like outside fights. There's just too many other factors that get involved. It's like playing basketball outdoors. You play basketball outdoors, there's the wind factor, there's heat, there's all kind of other issues you got to deal with that can affect your shot and everything and all things like that in your way you feel as well. And the same thing with boxing. There's just too many factors. Just if it's hot, if it's cold, and, all these different little things. If it's hot at one point and all of a sudden drops off and gets completely cold, then you're freezing and you got to find a way to warm up under these conditions. I really just don't like that aspect. I like it to be at a temperature indoors. And of course, most people want everything comfortable, especially when they're in a high pressure situation. But things didn't work out that way. It was hot. And I think it was really hot even going into the night where it finally cooled a bit. But I just remember feeling once again, like I did in Florida, when my hands and all, you could just feel the burning in your legs. And it's just like, man, it's just hot out here. It starts to take away from you. So you try to stay as hydrated as possible. But you still got to get out here in front of fans and fight. So feeling the nerves a bit, but at the end of the day, you got to get in there and do what you got to do and what you're paid to do. So I go in, and what I remember about him is he wasn't a bad boxer at all. Like a lot of these guys, and I think he had a decent amateur, if I'm not mistaken, but he was not a bad boxer at all. And it wasn't slow, had decent speed, and he did have a good, hard right hand. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I felt the need to take a few shots this one. And I remember taking like maybe 2 or 3 good, hard right hands. Now, I took them, and it didn't bother me, but I did realize that I can't keep letting this guy land these big shots at me like this, even if I can take them. You know what I mean? And why would you want to take punches freely? And I can't remember, Joey, I really can't 100% remember what round it was. I'm kind of leaning towards 4th.
6.
When I actually, it was a 6? Oh, man.
Butler, right?
There you go. See, yeah, Butler. Yeah, it was a 6th round. Okay, 6th round. Well, I don't know why I thought 4th, but I remember I'm winning pretty much, the fight. I'm winning the rounds and all, but he kept landing good shots. I remember landing those right hands, and I remember going back to my corner, Rob telling me, like, man, better stop letting that dude land them right hands on your head like that. And he just throwing them big right hands. And I remember, and the thing is, I don't take punishment. You know that now, and then even back then, I really didn't take punishment. So, I mean, I let him land those shots. I don't know what the hell I was thinking about. But it kind of got me into the fight and got me a little more, focused up. I mean, I still was winning the rounds. And then I remember I get into obviously the 6th round. And I can't remember, but I can't remember for sure, but I started seeing he had also an issue with not just him being overweight and stuff like that, but an issue with exhaustion, like where his body just like shuts down and starts to give way after a few rounds. I do not know why, but it looked like he started to get a little tired. You know what I mean? Like his body was starting to betray him a little bit. And I remember landing, if I'm not mistaken, like a counter right hand. And then I think I landed I think I buzzed him a little bit. Like you see him like literally his legs completely wobble. If I had the video of it, he looked like he was about to just completely pass out. He looked like he was drunk from, he had one too many drinks. And he wobbled really good. And then I remember hitting him, I think, with a hook right hand, knocked him out the ring. And he was almost gone, but he ended up getting up, which shows that he was actually in shape. And like I said, that was an issue for him in the past, but he actually got up. But he was done. There was nothing he could have done. I mean, the refs waved it off immediately, but he was definitely done. But he did get up. I give him the credit for that. But I don't know how he did, because it looked like he was out. But anyway, the fight's over. Great night. You know what I mean? A night that was a little too good. And Joey, I think I told you that I don't want to mention this. You know what? I shouldn't even have brought it up. I ain't going to mention it, because this is not a good thing to bring up in a situation like this when you're talking about boxing and how you're supposed to be, not doing certain things. And we're just going to leave it. We're just going to keep this boxing right now. You know what I'm saying, Joe? So anyway, moving on from there, got the win. Had a great night after that. Night was a little too good at times, but we're just going to leave it at that. Then we get back to Philly, and wanted to stay busy. The idea was to stay busy. And so what we did was we said, okay, we're going to get a fight with, and at the time I think I was down in weight, a little further down in weight than I had been, even with the Raphael Butler fight. I was, I think, 214 or 213 for that. In this particular fight, I think I might have been a little lighter. I might have been like 208, 209. And I fought a guy at the Blue Horizon, a small town fight by the name of Livin Castillo. He had actually been, I think, a former cruiserweight title champion, I think cruiserweight title challenger, or might have been a world champion. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember. But I got in there. I think we went 7 rounds. Is that right, Joey? 7 rounds before I stopped him, or 6 rounds?
5.
Oh, 5. Damn. Look, I'm way off. 5 rounds. And I remember, one thing I do remember about him, go into this really quickly, is that he was a cruiserweight. So the weight class was a little different. Now, I'm obviously expected to beat a guy like that. He was a cruiserweight, but he had, probably like 205 or something like that for the fight, I think, or maybe even lighter.
Yeah, if I just jump in, he didn't fight for a title. He didn't win a title or anything like that, but he did at one stage lose to Jean-Marc Mormec at light heavyweight.
That was what it was. That's what something. He had some claim to fame of some big fighter at something. I couldn't really remember.
And he also boxed Oleg Maskayev.
Oh, that might have been another thing that.
Yeah, that's probably what
I'm not thinking of. Yeah, so it was definitely those type situations I remember.
And he boxed Povetkin as well.
Did he?
Yeah, he boxed Povetkin.
I think I knew that. I think I definitely knew that.
And then he boxed the last fight he had before boxing you, he boxed Bruce Seldon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Definitely. How did he do in that fight, by the way? What round did he get stopped in?
5th round.
Same round. Ain't that crazy? I think I knew about this too, which is weird. But I remember it wasn't so, you get those guys in there that are just trying to make your life miserable. Well, that was somewhat what he was trying to do. It wasn't, and the funniest, I swear on my soul, Joey, I got the DVD of me and his fight in my house right now. I know exactly where it is, which is crazy that I'm even mentioning this fight, but I actually have the fight. 2008, me and Livin Castillo with the blue. But anyway, and I remember, I think I might have broke his jaw or did something to where because I hit him with a counter right hand, which I was landing a lot because he's a southpaw, and I kept landing those counter right hands on him. And, they all didn't land. That's what made it was like a weird situation. It was he wasn't an easy person to mark. You know what I mean? Like to find with a lot of these shots. He should be, and I felt like he should have been there for everyone. I still made it look interesting, good, and I, winning every round, but it still was very, very, very weird trying to, attack this guy and box this guy. But I remember catching him with that counter right hand, and as soon as I did, he went down to like a knee, I think, and he bounced right up and just basically said, "No, I'm done," and like waved it off immediately. Like he waved it off himself. He didn't need no towel from the corner or nothing. He just waved it off, like waved his hand, like I'm done, and told the ref he quit. And I think they told me something about his jaw, like his jaw was broken or something like that. And I'm not a huge puncher, I guess, but to a guy my size for the first time, might I add, in a long time, hit him with a straight right hand and popped it easily. So I mean, maybe if I fought at cruiserweight, maybe I would have more knockouts. But that was the case in that fight, which kind of showed a little something to me. And that was my first southpaw in a long time. And it was a good step in the right direction, and also to stay busy. Then we go fast forward. We're gonna go, and I'm gonna fight now, and this is gonna be the last one I'm gonna talk about. And there's really not much to talk about here, but I just wanted to kind of go over it a little bit because there's something that happened, and in this particular fight, that had nothing to do with the fighter or myself or anybody like that. But it was more the commentators and the people who don't throw a punch. But no disrespect to them, they have a job to do and they got to say what's on their mind. But what a lot of these things that were said off TV, so it was said amongst each other, so amongst themselves. So they basically, this is how they really felt, which is a little bit annoying to me. But at the end of the day, people have. I think I know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, I think you do too. But I'm going to fight a guy by the name of a
guy who has a J at the front of his name?
Yeah, but this was not that situation yet. This was another situation that it was very similar though. You are right, Joey, but it was very similar. But anyway, I remember, going to the fight, and I know Cisse already. And I was fighting Cisse Salif, who's he's an African guy. He's about 6'5", 270 pounds of nothing but muscle. This dude is one of the most intimidating dudes you'll ever see. Didn't have an ounce of fat on him, but he was 274 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like when you look at him, it's just like, if you didn't know boxing, you would think he would kill everyone. Simple. You know what I'm saying? Straight. If you didn't know boxing, you would have saw me stand next to him and be like, yo, you about to die tonight. It's just gonna be that. But the reality of it is, boxing has different elements to it, and bodies don't win fights. But he was a very intimidating looking dude. But I knew him, and I knew what he was capable of, and actually, he was a nice guy, very nice guy, very respectful. He had some big fights in his day, quote unquote big fights for him at the stage he was, and and it was a tough fight.
He boxed Ray Austin. He boxed he boxed what's his name? David Tua as well.
Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah, David Tua. Yeah,
Henry one day.
Yeah. He had a few fights.
And I remember Salif.
Oh yeah, old inner Salif. Yeah.
By the way, I've seen a pair of his fight worn boxing shorts for sale for like £45 the other day.
Then why didn't you get them, Joe?
Do you know what? Do you know what the story was behind them? They're just like a plain pair of Adidas shorts, and they're apparently he had these custom shorts ready for a fight, and then one of his team forgot the shorts, and at the last minute they had to just get some random shorts that were like spare. They were just Adidas plain shorts. But it's a shame, he was a guy who he comes to mind. He just didn't fulfill his potential at all.
Right. Like, and they say he had potential to be one of the great ones too, which sucks, man. Part of that Cuban lineage, man. It's just unbelievable. If when you see somebody who gets to a certain level and then just it doesn't happen, sucks. But that's life. That's sports, But all right, what was I saying again? I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I'm boxing. Sorry. No, I'm sorry. What was we were talking about? Cisse Salif and who he was fighting. But anyway, so we knew he was a tough guy, but not the best of skills and quality as far as who he was at that stage in his career. But we knew he was going to be there, and if I can get him out of there, it would be great. But let's just get the win, and that was the idea. And I remember riding up to get our medicals done together, and we're in the same car. And I know my manager and my people, they hated it because they know guys like him who are what do you want to call them, journeyman guys who just know that, hey, their main goal is to finish the fight so they can get another one as soon as possible, and maybe get in front of somebody who they can beat and just not end the fight by getting that 60-day vacation because you got stopped. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So a lot of these guys are just basically trying to stay on their feet and finish the fight, in some good shape and not have to not be suspended. So his thing is to butter me. They're thinking, and how my people think, because they know how nice of a guy I am, and I may, if he butters me up, I may take it easy on him in the fight and not try to kill him. You know what I mean? But the idea of it is, like, when I get in the ring, it's not about me trying to hurt a guy or not liking the guy personally. It's a business thing, and it's a sport. So most of the time, I'm not even angry. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'm not even angry when I'm in the ring. It's just about getting the job done. You know what I'm saying? It's about doing the right things. It's about being the better skill guy. You know what I mean? It's just like any other sport. It's like playing football. Like you said, Joey, it's just, you want to make the right move. You want to make the right play. In boxing, you want to throw the right punch. You want to, you know what I mean? In basketball, you want to make the right pass, or, for the person to get the right shot. It's just about, I don't want to say X's and O's, but it's about the sport. It's about getting the right thing done. So I'm not thinking about anger or whether he called my mom a name or talk about my dad or any of that crap. I can care less about that stuff. It doesn't move me. The only thing that moves me is what he's going to try to do on fight night. That's it. And what I can do to counteract that. So when I get into the ring, him buttering me up had no effect. But, my guys, they're just thinking, man, I don't know, you're too nice. And no, it has no effect. You know what I mean? I could have told them this 1,000 times. They would never believe it, because they just feel like, oh, I'm such a nice guy. Because in the gym, guys will try to do that stuff, and I'm not really trying to kill nobody in the gym because it's sparring. It's not a fight. So I'm just like, yo, whatever. You know what I mean? Go ahead and try to get some shots off. I'm going to make you miss, and if I make you pay, so what? I just know I can do this so I can, prepare for things later. This sparring is helping me for the fight, and I don't want it to hurt me or take anything away from what I'm going to be able to do in the fight. You understand what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, boxing is boxing, and I never let it get out of perspective. You know what I mean? I never let my mind or my frustration or anger take over and take me out of my game. So that's why I'm not worried about, I could have been in the same room as this guy, and we could have been all night up talking and laughing and joking about girls or something. And when we get in the ring the next day, I'm still going to go after you just like I would have if we didn't. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's a business. And so that's exactly what I did. But I remember I don't think we had a cut guy at the time. I think my man Vinny couldn't make it to the fight. And he was my cut man for years. Him, and then Rosetta Gary's is another person who was a cut person for us. And she's a plastic surgeon, so she was great. Vinny was always one of the best guys ever. I've never had to worry about cuts when I had him in my corner as well. So, but he couldn't make it, so we had to get another guy, and a guy by the name of Don. I can't remember his last name. I want to say Nelson, but I don't want to be wrong. But we called him. His name was Cutman Don. At least that was on his shirt. And I remember he was when I was in the process of fighting. We were already in there, and I'm fighting. And he was saying to my corner, and I learned this after the fight. It's like, damn, man, this guy didn't make one mistake. You know what I mean? Because you know, Joey, you know how I am as far as defensively and things like that. Like, I don't take unnecessary chances with getting caught with shots. Now, granted, I know sometimes people will say that that's how you become great, or that's how you and that's true. And there's certain times you do take chances, but you got to start to look at things through like a process of elimination. Like, what is the best way to go about this without and eliminating the worst possible results of you trying whatever you're going to try. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, if I go in there and I throw a jab, I know that it's minimal, the amount of things that he can do, especially if I throw it in a certain position. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to go out there and throw a big, wild left hook or a big, wild right hand and put myself in position to give him his only opportunity to catch me and knock me out and end up getting a great name on his resume, right? So I'm going to go out there and do what I need to do to get the win. Maybe not the most exciting thing, but it's going to keep me from being one of those statistics guys who go in there and get knocked off by somebody who shouldn't knock him off. You understand what I'm saying? And that's for that reason that I only have one knockout loss on my record, but we're going to get to that later. Anyway, I'm fighting him. I remember being in there with him and going back and forth, and I remember catching him with some really good shots, and I did hurt a couple of times, and I remember my corner kind of pushing me like, jump on him, and I'm like, but that's what he wants. He's literally laying on the ropes looking for me to jump on him so he can wind up a wild shot and catch me. And the reason I didn't do that at that time also was because I remember him hitting me a couple of times in the back of the head, and it didn't hurt me, like wobble me or anything, but I remember like, oh, if he does that again, I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? I don't know how I'm going to feel. And he did it twice. And I'm like, damn, is somebody going to say something? And I even looked at it. And the thing is, I know him. And this is how I know that it's a sport to me. And, well, obviously, I know this because I'm me, but it's a sport to me more than anything. And I look at him. I'm like, yo, why you hit me in the back of the head like that? I'm literally having a conversation with this dude in the ring while I'm trying to knock his head off and he's trying to knock mine off. But I never took my mind off, my eye off the prize and like, yo, if I hurt this dude, I'm getting him out of there if I can. But anyway, I'm like, yo, he hit me in the back of the head twice. Like, what's the deal? And then the ref didn't say nothing. I look at him. I'm like, and he literally, and I will not forget this, apologized. Like, oh, sorry about that in the middle of the fight. Now, this all goes on in, less than 3 seconds. But, that's just it literally seemed as long as I'm talking about it in the ring at the time. And that's just how sports and boxing is in general. Things go obviously a lot faster. When you're looking from the outside than when you're actually in there. But anyway, so that happens. And I remember then realizing, like, I'm not going to give him an opportunity to win this fight just by lying on the ropes and swinging a wild, ugly-ass shot and knock me off. You know what I'm saying? Like, no. So I stayed really, really smart, boxed as good as I could have boxed with current situation and also with trying to, impact the fight, the fighter enough to hurt him and do the things that I need to do to, if I could possibly get a stoppage, which never came that night. But so it ended up being an 8-round decision. I think I won every round. But the reason I really wanted to bring this particular fight up was not necessarily the fight itself and what happened. I mean, obviously some of the things that went on in the ring were good for me to see, and it was it was a good experience in general, just getting there with a guy who did have experience and was a big, tough, strong guy who I'm going to be facing big, tough, strong guys for my entire career. So it wouldn't hurt me getting there with a guy like him with experience too. So, but it was also because I remember, and I didn't hear this. I heard this through someone. I'm thinking it was Lenny. It was my personal assistant for a lot of years and a good friend of mine as well. I think it was him that told me, but there were 2 commentators, and I can't name them because I can't even remember who they were at the time. And they're probably guys that I see all the time, on TV now maybe, but I'm not 100% sure. But I remember him saying something to the effect of, who's on right now? You know what I mean? Because it was I forget what undercard I was on. I can't really remember. And they said, Eddie Chambers is fighting somebody. I don't even know if they told me. He's like, Eddie Chambers, we're not missing anything. And it just went on about their whole thing. And I'm sitting there like, damn, man, these dudes. And it's like, that's really, really disrespectful. And I want to comment on this. It's not because they can't have their opinion. I can be a crappy fighter or a terrible fighter, but we all know that I'm not. We all know that the skill level is high. Now, if you watch a skill level a high skill level basketball player or soccer player, football player, right? Or American football player or any of these other sports, you shake his hand and you praise him. But how come in boxing, when those things happen, we don't? Unless there's something super extraordinary about their story, they don't really publicize it and make it a big thing. They just shoot it down, especially with a person like me. I don't have a crazy backstory I do have a crazy backstory, but it's not the normal crazy backstory. Yeah, it's poor. I was poor and all that crap. But the idea was I never went to jail. I don't have a criminal record. I don't have any craziness. I was always a good kid. I always went to school. I finished high school. I did everything that I was supposed to do up to the point of me turning professional. But there was some crazy stuff that went on, most of it through boxing, but it wasn't bad enough for anybody to focus on. So I guess because of that part, you overlook the skill level and what I've actually done and the amount of things and amount of work that I've put in. I put my entire life into this sport over the span of almost 20 years. And you got these two guys who have never even laced a glove on their hand, you know what I mean, one time, except for to keep their hands warm. And they have disrespectful and they just don't respect the grind of where I've come from. And it's ridiculous. Like, okay, so if I read one of their articles, or if I listened to them speaking in a public forum about something that they're supposed to be schooled on, and I listen, I say, man, they didn't really say this right, or I critique every little word they said, whether they pronounced it correctly, and say, oh, these guys are terrible, or I don't even want to listen to it, and turn my back on it. Would that be respectful? You know what I mean? Would you even give them would it be fair to them with all of the time that they put into school and doing all of the things that they do? Some of these guys haven't even done all that, by the way, but just to disrespect their grind and the amount of work they put in, I think is a little ridiculous. And I'm gonna end that part on that, because I don't want to get into it, because I'm gonna get even more mad about it when I think about all of the work that I put in my entire life and my entire career, and most of my life, which I've spent in boxing, I'm saying most of my life, from when I was 13 on up till now. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like it's a really, really bad thing to say, to discount an entire body of work over something you've seen maybe twice against high-level competition, even though I don't think Cisse was necessarily the highest level, but he's still a professional at one of the top levels in boxing and has fought guys to prove that. So it's just a little disrespectful, and I would really encourage people who commentate, and if you watch the actual fighters that commentate, they rarely knock guys off their off the pedestal. Like, they rarely say, oh, he's terrible, or oh, he needs to be this, or he really, no, they're more uplifting. And I wonder why that is. You know, it's because they understand the grind. They understand how difficult it is to get into a position to be the best or one of the best there is. So you should respect where they've come from. And that's my only issue with a lot of these guys who haven't put gloves on. They need to really respect what the art, what this sport is, because it's pugilism. It's something that people don't just sign up for. You know what I'm saying? Like, easily. I mean, even though we do, but you know what I mean? It's like you couldn't get too many people to do this more than once. And trust me, there's been a ton of people that's come into gyms and left out that day and never came back. So I just feel like these guys should respect the grind a lot.
Oh, that's fair enough, Eddie. And you're right in what you say. I agree with you. You know, obviously, the fan inside you, though, at times can make you say stuff. For example, there's obviously times, that I've reviewed a fight or whatever, and I've felt that they were. I mean, I don't really, to be honest, there's a lot of really, really negative people. I don't really do that, to be completely honest.
I know.
I listen to a lot of other people, and they really go in hard, but yeah, I respect everyone that gets in the ring, and I don't really. bash people or kick them when they're down, to be honest with you. So, I can understand why they do it, but yeah, I'm with you.
It's just not. Think about it, Joe. Every time I hear you say, best of luck to him. Hopefully he gets back. Things like that you say, or oh man, he didn't do what he could have done in this fight, but he's done this, he's done that. Even on guys who aren't even world level or even domestic level, you give them respect, and I just think it's an important thing to understand that this is a sport that is a very difficult sport to make it in. Anybody can turn pro, but not anybody can make money or be popular or be a top level talent in the sport. It's not easy. This is a hell of a sport. It's the business sometimes overshadows the amount of work these guys put in. When you look at a guy like Tyson Fury, man, it ain't by accident that he's there. You know what I mean? And then, look at even with Deontay Wilder and a lot of these other guys. Don't get me wrong. Some of these guys had roads somewhat paved for them, but they still had to walk down. You know what I'm saying? So it's not everything is not just given to you. You know what I mean? It's not easy out here.
No, you're right. And that fight you were talking about, that final fight against Cisse Salif, that was the undercard of James Toney and Freza Quendo.
Oh yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Also on that bill, Andre Ward against Esteban Kamal, and Malik Scott against Raphael Butler as well.
Raphael Butler, and that's the fight that I didn't mention that I remember watching, but Malik didn't stop him. And I remember we had me, Malik, and Butler afterwards we're talking. Like literally we're sitting there talking for like 20 or 30 minutes. I think, did it start raining? I can't remember. But anyway, we were out because we were under like a tent. Well, the fighters were under a tent anyway. But yeah, it was a crazy night.
Okay, well there you go. We've spoke about the fights that took place after the Povetkin fight. Obviously, we've mentioned their fights against Raphael Butler, Livin, Castillo, and Cisse Salif. Next time, Eddie, what should the listeners expect to hear about?
Oh, man, it's going to be a nightmare. No.
A Nigerian one?
Yeah, like me and one. Yeah, somewhat like that. But it was a nightmare that actually turned out to be just a small bad dream or a big bad dream. But anyway, no, it was I was fighting Sam Peter this one, and in the next one. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot to learn, and believe me, I learned it, even though it didn't really seem that way during the course of the fight.
Yeah. So next time we shall speak about Sam Peter, who at the time, of course, was a former WPC, as he says, Eddie. WPC. What's he say? I got WPC with me. That's what he says. So, former WBC heavyweight world champion. And if we get enough time, we will also speak about the Alexander Dimitrenko fight that followed that. So big ones to come. And of course, after that, we get onto the big one, the Vladimir Klitschko fight. So don't miss the next time we speak about Eddie's Lockdown Knockdown segment, which will be, I'm guessing, probably next week, or we'll see how it goes. We'll play it by ear, obviously, next week. A big week of boxing. Eddie Hearn back with a pay-per-view event, White Povetkin. So, obviously, listeners of the podcast, weekly listeners, you won't miss it, but definitely don't miss it for those that don't listen every week. So it's going to get quite interesting. But that's it. And just before we bring in our sole guest on this week's podcast, Eddie, if you just want to sign out with a message to the listeners or whatever you want to do, thanks again for spending this time with me and taking me down memory lane.
No, not a problem, man. It's an enjoyable thing, man. I'm enjoying it just as much as you guys are, and because I like to talk. But it's nice to relive these things, and some of these things honestly seem just like yesterday. And I'm talking about it now and realizing that it's almost been probably 10 years plus ago that these things have happened. And it's just like, man, where does time go? But I guess time flies when you're having fun, right?
That's what they say, my friend. And this hour and a bit has flown. But listen, let's now bring in our sole guest on this week's podcast, the former unified world champion, Mr. Daniel Roman. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former unified Super-Bantamweight world champion. It is, of course, Mr. Daniel Roman. Daniel, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you, Joey. I'm happy to be back.
Always great when speaking to you, Danny, believe me. So we last spoke back in late November. It was a couple months before your fight. I think at the time it had just been agreed at the time against Murodjon Akhmadaliev. Of course, the fight took place on January 30th in Miami. There were a few upsets that night on that card, to be honest. You were involved in one of them. Just walk us through that fight from your perspective. What seemed to go wrong back in January?
It was a tough opponent. It was a tough guy. I believe I started a little bit late. And once I started picking it up, I figured the guy out and trying to break him down little by little. But the decision didn't go my way. I believe it was a close fight, but I believe I won that fight.
Yeah, it was a really good fight as well, by the way. But, I know that after the fight, it didn't take long for you to be back in the gym training hard. And that's when the pandemic arrived, of course, on a huge scale. What's it been like for you training during these tough times, Danny?
After the fight passed, I got the 2-3 weeks off to recover. Once that happened, we got straight back to the gym. And around that time, that's when the pandemic started. At first, it was hard because they closed the gym I was training at. And, my manager was moving around and trying to get me a gym so I could stay active. And, we found a private gym, and ever since, we've been training, trying to keep ourselves in shape. And that's what we're trying to get prevent this virus spread and try to keep ourselves sanitized.
And what have you kind of gotten up to in your time outside of the gym? Because like I say, a lot of people have been stuck at home, haven't been able to get to the gym as much as they'd like to do. Have you been up to anything interesting in your time out from the gym?
No, Joey. So far, everything here is, we're in lockdown. Everything's closed. They're opening a few other stores, but you could say the restaurants, all of them, they got just takeout food. But overall, I've been busy with boxing. In a way, it's good because it keeps me more focused, and but seeing friends, it's kind of hard, because it's basically just a handful of us training.
And I want to ask you this as well, because I feel like a lot of people don't really know the Daniel Roman outside of the ring. Do you have any kind of random, interesting hobbies? Do you do anything do you play any instruments, for example? Is there anything interesting that you get up to aside from boxing?
I like reading a lot. I tried playing guitar. I wasn't good on that. I gotta admit, I wasn't good on that. I tried it. I might go back at it, especially now. With this time, but we got a fight date. In September 26th. Yeah. So now I'm back busy, trying to get myself back in shape and trying to get ready for this upcoming fight.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll speak about that in just a second. But yeah, I just think you're obviously a real world level fighter inside the ring, and I remember seeing your trainer Eddie post a picture of you on Fight Week for your last fight, and you're defending 2 world titles against this brilliant amateur. And I remember he put a picture up saying, I think it was the day before or something, you were eating a meal or something like that, and there's no entourage or anything. It's just literally you with a boring bowl of salad in front of you, just completely dedicated to the game. I admire that. But yeah, getting on to the fight, you mentioned it there. It's going to take place September 26th in Connecticut on the Charlo undercard. You'll be boxing former bantamweight world champion Emmanuel Rodriguez. What do you know about your opponent here, Danny?
He just, I think his last fight, he lost it to Inoue Inoue, the Japanese fighter. This guy, he was the next world champion, So he's not no easy opponent, especially now at this level. It wasn't before, especially because anything can happen in boxing. A punch can change everything. So now, I know I'm going against a tough opponent, we'll make the right adjustments and we'll get ready for this guy.
And have you been able to get sufficient enough sparring in during this crazy time? Like I said, have you had the right kind of sparring to prepare you for this fight?
We're working on that. It's kind of difficult with this pandemic going on. But like I believe my manager and my trainers are doing the best they can to get me the right sparring to get ready.
Okay, and you mentioned again, his only loss has come to Naoya Inoue. He was in the World Boxing Super Series. He's beaten a range of good fighters. In my eyes, he is one of the best fighters in the world at bantamweight. However, he's moving up to meet you at 122 here. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I'm excited to see that one. He's coming up in weight for you. Of course, it is your weight class. That whole card, by the way, is a real good card. I know it's going to be on pay-per-view, obviously, but you've got both Charlos in huge fights. You've got two young world champions defending their belts as well. Two great guys, Brandon Figueroa and Mario Barrios, friends of the show. I'm really looking forward to the card as a whole, and of course your fight. Yeah, so we've kind of flown through the questions, really. Danny, have you got anything else going on at all that you want to, inform the listeners of? Anything else going on in your life?
Well, with this fight day, I got myself back in focus on boxing and trying to prevent this virus, and trying to get it or spread it around. So I've been busy with this, and to all my fans, coming back September 26th, and be ready. I always try to give the best of me, the best fight, try to win the night. I know there's going to be big names on that card, Charlos, Mario Barrios, and Figueroa. So, I'm gonna try to take the night, make it my night.
Try to steal the show. And I want to ask Danny, is the best yet to come?
Yes. This loss, it was a setback. It's a learning lesson. You're only going to make me stronger, like I said after the interview, after the fight. It's only going to make me stronger, and I believe on that. I'm going to come back stronger than what I was before.
Yeah, and I hope that can happen. Like I say, you had a couple setbacks early on in your career, and they spurred you on. I hope that loss there in your last fight, which, by the way, was a very, very, very close fight. I hope that we do see a better and a better and smarter version of yourself. I know that obviously with the way the year has gone so far, it's almost impossible to kind of map out your future at this stage. But from a boxing point of view, what are your short-term goals at this point? Obviously, they start with a win on September 26th against Rodriguez. But ideally, what is the plan after that for you, Dan?
Well, after this, I believe it's a title eliminator. So after this happens, hopefully we can get a title shot. I don't know, it won't happen this year with all this stuff going around. But if it could happen next year, it'll be great. And especially if I could get that rematch with MJ. Yeah. That's what's in my mind. We still got unfinished business.
Yeah, absolutely.
With MJ. So
absolutely.
Hopefully that, and hopefully all this gets fixed soon. That's the main one. Because it's not just holding me, it's holding a lot of fighters back as well.
Yeah, for sure. And if you've got any closing words at all, Danny, just to our listeners, just to clarify, you're not on Twitter, are you? It's just Instagram, right?
Yes, it is. But I was thinking of making an account, so I might be joining soon.
Hey, we want to see you on there, man. Okay, but listen, Danny, it's always go on.
I mean, you. Can I get my Instagram?
Yeah, of course. Give it.
Keep up with me on Instagram. Instagram is _ babyface assassin _ and I'll keep everybody updated on that. If I'll try to make this a Twitter account, I'll keep everybody updated there as well too.
Yeah. So once again, that is _ babyface assassin _ Yes. So follow Danny there.
Yes, sir.
I'm following you on that, Danny. I don't think you followed me back, but it's okay. It's all good.
I'll check it.
Okay, listen, Danny, listen. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. You know that yourself. Best of luck for September 26th.
Yes.
Thanks for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again next time.
Thank you, Joey. Have a good one.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 252 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A big thank you to him. A massive thank you to our sole guest on this week's podcast, the former unified Super-Bantamweight world champion, Daniel Roman. One piece of news that has broken whilst we've been recording the show is that Mark Castro, who I joked about earlier on when I said he was fighting Raul Corona, he's actually tested positive for coronavirus, so he will no longer feature on this card that's going to be taking place on Saturday night in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, I feel for Mark Castro, obviously a very good amateur, a real hotly anticipated debut, but we're going to have to wait for that to come around. All the best to him. But that's about everything from me. I'd like to thank you, the listeners, for listening to this week's podcast once again. You make this show what it is. 19 world champions in the last 19 podcasts we've brought you now. It's not been easy, but it's been worth it. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.